Hello and welcome to this tutorial on interfaces in creative VR tools like TiltBrush, Blocks, and Maquette. I'm going to start with TiltBrush. If you'd like to see the interface for Blocks, fast forward to this time code. If you'd like to see the interface overview for Microsoft Maquette, fast forward to this time code. Okay, let's get started with TiltBrush. So I'm logged into an AVL reality station and I'm just opening TiltBrush from the Steam interface. Putting on my VR headset here, and I've got my handsets, and I'm going to click TiltBrush and hit play in VR, and then I'm going to maximize the screen. Oh, it is, so that you can see it. Okay, so when TiltBrush opens, it has this like kind of different sketch all around you, but it's really just sort of the home screen, and you can choose new sketch right here, and then it opens this menu here. And I actually have mine toggled to the advanced menu set. What you might see if you come down here, so what you might see is it looks like this with just 3 panels, and then this down by your wrist you have this. When you hover over it, it opens up a few different icons for the sketchbook. I'm gonna basically direct your attention down there and go to this little, looks like a little metal, like maybe a ribbon. So click that and it'll change it to advanced mode. And then you have just a few more options here to work with. So the first thing that's apparent in TiltBrush for everyone is that you'll want to be able to draw with your right hand. And if you're left-handed, you can actually take the handsets and click the bottoms together, and you see how it switches. That's in TiltBrush by default. That's kind of a cool hidden feature they don't talk about. I'm going to switch them back because I'm right-handed. And when you paint, you just hold the trigger down. So I can draw like this, and then if I need to choose a different brush, you take the handset and point it at the brushes menu. If the brushes menu is not up, you can turn your wrist and find it, or you can actually swipe your thumb across the touch interface and it will switch. It'll kind of carousel around the menus, and then you just pick a different brush, and then if you have a different color in mind, you can do that as well. So this is all pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to show you some more other things in TiltBrush that are not common. So one of the things that's important is when you work in graphic design of any kind, doing sketches, digitally it's nice to be able to zoom in and out. And in VR, the question for designers was, how do you zoom in and out in VR? I mean, you could take your head in there, but your hands never really get smaller, and it's harder to work with. If you look at your handsets, there's a grip button on the side of them, okay? And this usually is down towards the base of the handset. And if you grip both at the same time, this fancy interface comes up where it's saying you're a human scale right now. So if you widen your hands apart, now you're small. Now you're the size of a dog. If you go even further, you'll be the size of a squirrel. So you see what happened here is the world is now much bigger. But actually, you got much smaller is what happened. So if we go back, now we're the size of an elephant. And the other thing is you can kind of grab the world and move it around you. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to hold it up here so you can see what I mean. And I pull it towards me. And now this drawing is right here, right in front of me. And I'm huge. So then I'm going to do a very large feature. Okay. And then I'll make myself not bigger, sorry, smaller, back to, we'll go dog scale, dog size. And I'll pull the world closer to me. And then I can paint, at that scale, smaller details. This brush, by the way, if you use your thumb on the touchpad, or if you're using a different type of handset, you usually have a joystick or a touchpad, you can swipe left and right, and it'll change the size of your brush. So very large brush versus a very small brush. So these are not commonly seen and used in TiltBrush when you do quick demos. Teleport's one that a lot of people like to use because it helps you to get around the virtual world. Okay. You'll notice I'm kind of floating up above the ground here, so I'm going to make myself human scale. Now I'm kind of on the ground. And you kind of want to always come back to human scale to remember, how big things are. So some other things you can do is you can actually, one of my favorite things about TiltBrush is they already consider what people might be using TiltBrush for. So you can change the environment. So it looks like on your menu set, it looks like kind of like a mountain in a snow globe. You click that, and they've got this dress form. So we click that, and then here we have an actual dress form, so that we could feasibly design apparel with this system. So that's kind of an interesting use case that I never thought of, is putting on a VR headset and designing clothing. So as you can imagine. And then when you're done with this, you can actually take this entire design and upload it to Google Poly, which I showed in a previous tutorial on how you might do that. And there's guides. So in the advanced mode, you get these guides. So like, let's say I wanted to have a specific type of shape. I'm going to switch the environment to something else. I'm going to switch to a pedestal. This would be like if you're designing maybe like I don't know, a sculpture, like you're sculpting something. You don't necessarily sculpt in TiltBrush, but I'm going to erase this. And I'm going to grab this. So I'm using the grip button again, putting the handset through this little floating menu and holding the grip button down to move it. And I'll grab a capsule. So then as I put the capsule down here, I can make it bigger or longer, I guess. Wider. There we go. Now this is somewhat of an odd shape, but at least it helps me get started on, you know, a common form, more of a geometric shape instead of just free drawing. I'm going to choose a different brush here. So let's do splatter. And I'll choose, like, I don't know, red. Make my brush bigger. And I'm going to go right on the outside. And you can see my brush stays right on the outside. So if I click the trigger, it'll stay there. Now that's kind of scary, isn't it? Why did I choose splatter and red? It looks like splattered blood. Anyway, all right, so then let's choose stars, and we'll go green, and blue. There we go. I have no idea what I'm making. And now I can take this guide away, and it's like, well, that's a weird thing. But, you know, if you go into this with a more thoughtful design process that I'm showing to you right now, you can use guides to your advantage and really sort of make things look impressive. I'm also rotating the world here, so I'm clicking the grips again, and I'm twisting my arms left and right, and that is spinning the world. So you really can make great use of your space without actually having to move around too much. Okay, let's move on to Google Blocks now. So I found Blocks here on the menu. I'm going to launch that. Okay. So this is sort of Block's loading screen, this animation. And I have two handsets similar to TiltBrush where the menus are on the handsets. And right away they give you access to this ability to create a cube. And I'm not even going to look at this left-hand menu. Again, if you needed to switch, if you're right-handed or left-handed, you could switch controllers, or you can just tap the bottoms together and they switch. TiltBrush has this, Blocks has this. It's very clever. And they don't actually let people know about this. I had to find that sort of on my own, or a friend of mine showed me. So right away you get access to sort of the assets, shapes, like that are just like geometric shapes. And if you use your thumbstick or thumb pad, you can actually click left and right and it'll choose a bunch of different other primitives. So spheres, cone, box, yeah, you get the idea. And if I wanted to make this larger, you actually just go to the top or bottom of the handset touchpad, and you get a bigger or smaller item. Okay. And then when you want to place it, you just click the trigger. Okay, there it is. And then I'll make another object. Let's say a cone. Put a cone on top of it. And you see it automatically scaled up to the right size to match. So it's hard, if you see here, how you can't snap the shape. So if I were to click, and it's like, that's not right. I want them to actually be connected like a rocket ship. So on my left hand, there's a left and right on the thumb pad. You can click left and it'll undo that. And there's actually a thing here called the grid down below. So I'm pointing my right hand at my left hand and pointing at this grid. And then it gives me this kind of like, you know, Cartesian coordinate system where it's snapping items together. So the first thing I want to do is just sort of get off of this menu. So I'm going to click the grab tool here, and I'm going to move this item somewhere. There we go. And then I'm going to click insert shape tool again, and then now I should be able to snap this at least close to the top. And it's not going to be perfect. It actually, I think, should be a little bit bigger. Maybe not. But it's still not the best like engineering grade 3D modeling package. Maybe someday we'll have that, but for right now it's real basic. And even there you see it's off on this side and that side. So it takes some practice, and it's probably never going to be perfect, at least in this version of blocks. I'm just going to try to line it up pretty close. Okay. There you go. So if I wanted to change the color of these items, you can choose the paint tool, and then it showed you the animation along the outside of the menu. That means flip it over, because here's all the sort of pastels and colors and textures. Of course, I'm sure they'll add more in the future, but like if I choose this, we're going to have this sort of odd, sort of crystalline texture. I'll go to red here, make that red, make this blue. There you go. Sort of interesting. Okay, so I've got this shape here, and you can of course rotate your wrist if you wanted to choose different angles. And I still have that grid tool on, so it's always going to kind of bias itself to 90 degrees. To turn that grid off, you just click it again. So now you got more freeform use. The next thing I want to show you is the insert stroke tool. So this is like TiltBrush actually, but this creates actual geometry instead of just swipes through the air that have sort of stylization. But you see here I can kind of free paint geometry, and then of course as I'm going along I can actually increase the size. So let's see if I can do that. I'll start here and then I'll increase the size. Right, so this is kind of a lesser known use, and I can make it smaller as I'm going along. Right, so we just, I don't know, what you could make probably a tail of something by doing that sort of thing. If you go left and right, you can get different primitive shapes again. Okay. There again. Okay. And then if you want to erase things, you just choose the erase tool and click the item, and the whole thing disappears. And then you could even paint those items after they're made. The modify tool, so this is actually kind of getting closer to like more 3D modeling. So if you want to do reshaping, your thumb, you go to the top and reshaping's there. And reshaping's just sort of like this. You're essentially just sort of pulling faces in different directions and twisting them. It'll give you some feedback when it doesn't like what you're doing, because certain 3D geometry, it won't look that good if you crease things. Like as you can see here, that's just not going to work out that well. So then it went ahead and normalized my motion there to not be so dramatic. Okay, so then I'm going to undo that again with my left thumb button there, and then something else you can do is if you rub your thumb across the surface, you can extrude items. So these are actually not items, extrude faces. So now this actually creates more faces, and it's an extrusion instead of just instead of actually pulling the face. So I'm not sure what I'm making here, but you get the idea. So then over here is subdivide. So this is actually adding an edge to the face. So two more vertices and an edge, but then by doing that, now I can go back to extrude, and I can sort of do more complex things with the surfaces I'm working on. So these are the essential tools for box modeling. Again, in blocks, you're going to be handling a lot of like more artistic things rather than engineering type things. And then when you're done, you can actually take this and upload it to Google Poly. And I showed that in a previous tutorial on how to do that. Okay, let's look at Microsoft Maquette now. Oh, also when you're in blocks, real quick, you can use the grip buttons on the left and right side of the controller to scale up and down your the volume you're working in. So you're not scaling yourself up and down. So I'm putting my arms apart left and right, pressing both of the grip buttons at the same time, putting them together, and you could release them when you got it to the size you want. If you want to make the item bigger, you just, I'm sorry, not the item bigger, but if you want to make your workspace bigger, you keep your hands together like this and spread them out, and then you can get in and work at small details. So this is kind of a way of zooming in and out within the interface. TiltBrush also has this. Okay, let's move to Microsoft Maquette now. Okay, so I've located Microsoft Maquette, and I'm going to hit play in VR. So right away, the first thing you're going to see in Maquette is, you know, sketches that people have made. This is in the spotlight section, and they do have tutorials. You know, I'm just going to cover a brief summary, but you can go through here and see some more advanced techniques and kind of help you through. But you could do that in the VR headset, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to hit create a new project here by pointing my left hand at my right hand. And what I've got here is quite a complex menu, but you point your one hand at the other hand. If you need to switch hands, I think you switch controllers, or there is a, if you go into settings, you can actually switch your hands. Yeah, right here. I am not left dominant, so I'm going to switch it back. There we go. All right, going back in here, I'm going to just make some geometry real quick. So I'm going to point here at this little assets button, and it creates a bunch of primitives for me to use. And there are other objects in the Maquette library I can pull from that they've basically created and put out there, like plants. This is kind of neat. These are a bunch of FBXs that were made available. Leaves. Let's see what else they've got. Devices. The WMR controller, WMR headset complete. That's funny. Grab that. There it is. So then you just click and drag it into your space. Maybe. There we go. So there it is. And then I should be able to make it bigger. Oops. I'm going to hit undo. So on my left hand, I've got on a touchpad, I can go left and right, and it'll switch to undo or redo. Okay. And let's see. I should be able to scale this. I think if I grab it with one hand, yeah, I can. Yeah, this is weird. So I'm actually using the grip button here, this blue one that's lighting up. If you're on a Vive handset, it's going to be also down on the base of the handset that you're using. And once you grip an item, you can kind of snap to one of these sides and then scale up. It's not ideal, though, because it's not a universal scale up, right? You see what I mean? If I do that, that's not quite right. So I think once things are bigger, or like, yeah, I can scale the world bigger or smaller. So I'm using both grip buttons here and then spanning them out, and the whole world gets actually bigger. So then my view of the world gets like I'm smaller. So I'm going to put the two hands inside of this, and then I'm going to use both of the grip buttons once again. And yeah, I'm scaling the object now instead of scaling the world. So I just needed like kind of more context to work with. So I'm going to scale the world back down to human scale. There, I don't know, that's pretty close to like a real world size headset. And, you know, if I wanted to change the color of it, you have a color picker right here, of course. Is that right? No, I have to actually click the paint bucket and then change the color. And there we go. Okay. So some of the cool things you can do in Maquette. So below the selection button, you have the ability to do brushes, sort of like TiltBrush, for instance. So I'm going to change the color here, and they obviously change. And you have a line tool, so I can choose that and actually draw straight lines. That's kind of cool. So I can actually consider, you know, if I'm designing something for a VR headset, let's say, I can say, okay, I'm going to design a fan unit that help me keep cool, so my head doesn't get so sweaty in a headset. So I'll switch to freeform here. There we go. And then that's horrible. There we go. And then I don't even know what I'm doing, but you get the idea. There is the ability to clone, so I can click on this object, clone another one. I can go on the selection tool, for instance, do global selection. I can invert a selection, so if I select this and that's not right, I hit inversion, it switches to the opposite of everything. You can just select one thing after another and hit erase selection, and there's recoloring of selections. Okay. So then you can use an eyedropper to pull different colors, and you can take photos, and these get, you know, saved. So I pulled the trigger on my right hand to take the photo, and that got saved as a JPEG on the system. You can actually put 3D text in the virtual world as well. If you click the text object, a lot of people are like, the text button doesn't work because there's nothing here to click. Actually, what you do is you can, you see here this T with this sort of ball selection here in front of your right hand, or whichever hand is your dominant hand. You actually click and drag like a marquee. So I'm going to put a text object up here, and I'm going to type in my left hand. I've got the keyboard. You can actually click this pin keyboard and it'll stay floating in 3D space, so then you can get back to it anytime you want to. But I'm going to unpin that and just make sure it's on my hand. And I'm going to type in H. So I'm double clicking caps lock if I want caps lock, HMDs, just like a, you know, a mobile device. HMDs. So head mounted displays, that's what that stands for. And then I'm going to change the color of the text to, I don't know, white. There we go. That's fine. And then that's it. If I select off, go to like the selection tool, it becomes an object, right? Say you wanted to delete that. I mean, you could click the eraser tool and like delete whatever object you saved, or click on it. Here's something else that's kind of cool. So this is something that I saw in TiltBrush first. So the grip button on your handset, you can use to grip any object. And let's say you just wanted to get rid of like this text. You reach up to it and you could just fling it, right? And it just disappears. So that's just a kind of a cool way to get rid of items. I'm going to undo that though, and they're back. So that's kind of neat. I'm going to see if I can actually do like pushing and pulling like on box modeling. So let me see. Let me create a cube here. And I know what I can do with the cube. If I grip the cube here, then I can do this, right? So I guess I can do scaling, but I don't think I can do extrusions in Maquette. So that's tricky. And there is no snapping. You know, I looked this up prior to doing this tutorial, and there is no way for me to like snap this headset so that it sits exactly on top of something like that. You see how it, you know, it's going through. Well, it just deleted it for some reason. But yeah, I can't snap this to the top of it. I don't know. So these are some useful tools inside of Maquette. Again, it's going to change. Dig through the menus and sort of play with this stuff. You can export your stuff after you've selected it. So say I wanted to export just that, and not that to Google Poly. I selected all three of them, and then I click the export object or export item here, and I can export it into these different formats. I've had good success with GLTF and GLB with Google Poly. I have not with FBX. If you just want to save it on your local computer and get back to it later, you can actually click on projects down here, and I believe you just hit the Save As button. Yeah, it lets you name it whatever you want. We'll just say demo for me here. Save. Now I can get back to this when I put the headset on the next time. And you know, if you're working on an IU computer, just make sure you probably want to export everything as like a Maquette file. I think, yeah, here, this is what you'll want to do actually if you're working on an IU computer. Make sure you can back it up on box or something. Is click the three dots to the right of your button there, your project, and then say Show in Explorer. And then it's going to open that up on the PC desktop. And then you're going to want to take this entire folder here, just go up one level where it says Demo, so I named mine Demo. And you want to zip that up. And then the next time you get into Maquette on another system, all you have to do is log into Documents, find Maquette, and then just drag your... wait, where would it have been? Maquette projects. So you go to Documents and Maquette and Projects, and then you would just unzip your Maquette project in here, and then you could make use of it on the VR system. Okay. If you have any questions, contact vizhelp@iu.edu. And that was my overview of 3 of the Creative Tools interfaces that are available on a VR reality station. Thanks for watching. Bye.